Hello, fellow human light beings. This is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. Thank you for joining me today. This is the Solar Flash Update for November 17th, 2023. And today I'm going to talk to you how spiritual warriors survive the 5D Earth split. If you were here yesterday, we talked about how the pressure is increasing because the shift is becoming more intense. The energy is working harder to create the 5D world, which means there's going to be a split between the 5D and the 3D. So being a spiritual warrior means that you choose to take action. And so are you an active participant in your reality, or are you a passive observer? There are no victims. There are no victims. So today we're going to be talking about what it means to take full responsibility, and hopefully I'll be able to get to the nuances of all of that. And why am I talking about this? Well, it's because I'm observing. You know what's interesting, I guess the way to look at it is this. Because of the challenges that I went through my entire life, there's a reason why I share the 12 steps to 5D. It's because the 12 steps have saved my life. If I hadn't worked them, I would not have survived. I would die. I would have died. And I would have been absolutely miserable. So most people aren't, or at least up until now, most people have not been put in the position of having to take direct and complete sweeping actions in their life because their life didn't depend on it. Mine did. And so taking actions that were extremely difficult, frightening, and painful, and challenging, and the kinds of actions that went completely contrary to all of the impulses that was going on inside of me, to basically going against my survival instincts. And that's really what contrary action means. It means taking actions that are completely contrary to all of the impulses and feelings within you that tell you what you need to do in order to survive. So you have to be somebody who has nothing left to lose. Like, you're going to die anyway, so what's the worst that could happen? Let's give it a try. Most people don't believe they're in that state. In fact, you are, especially now. Now it's becoming more apparent. People are beginning to feel, we call them ascension symptoms. And people spiritualize that and use it as as some kind of a medal or a pat on the back. I'm going through ascension symptoms, but they don't take any responsibilities, because ideally, if we were fully, completely surrendered to our soul and following our soul, again, this is an ideal. If we were completely surrendered, we wouldn't have any ascension symptoms. We would just be expanding in our bliss and our awareness. However, as I've been telling you, as a human being, you are programmed to stay in the third dimension. So your survival, your instinct of survival, is directly connected to staying in the third dimension, which, by the way, is a very powerful environment for being a victim. And being a victim means that you do not take responsibility. Now, a lot of people aren't complete victims or complete warriors. They're usually a combination of the two. Like I said, most people don't become a total utter spiritual warrior unless they have nothing left to lose. They're going to, and so now what's happening is we're bumping into a lot of people who, human beings, average human beings, who feel entitled. We've been trained to feel entitled. And so an entitled person is usually a victim, because when they don't get whatever it is that they think they want, they feel victimized. This is an extreme example. I didn't experience this, but a friend of mine here did. And he was talking about somebody from out of town, complete other side of the country, from the city, and come here to where we are, and was making a big stink and whining and complaining because the dog, they'd been on the beach and the dog was covered with sand, and they had to get in the car and they had to leave. And my friend walked up to him and said, "There is a dog shower at the end of this short road." To which the person responded, "Well, why isn't there one here?" It's just, it didn't even dawn on him to go, "Oh, thank you. We'll walk, 200 yards to the end of the road." He felt so entitled that wherever he was, it was the responsibility of who knows who, somebody else, to provide him with the dog shower. And if they didn't provide him for the dog shower for where he happened to be, then he had the right to be upset and whine and complain. And that sounds totally unreasonable, except that we all do this to some degree or another. We're all a bunch of entitled, narcissistic, immature children. So the difficult part about giving this message that I'm giving is that one of the things that entitled children do is they feel guilty. Their first response when being challenged is to either be rageful, like that guy did. "Well, why isn't it here now when I need it right now?" Because the truth is, he must have felt some weird guilt or some self-devaluation because his dog had, sand on it. And that's probably why he responded that way. Like, why isn't there one here now? But we usually respond from one of those two places. Rageful, childlike temper tantrums, or the other side is complete self-hatred, guilt, and self-devaluation. These are the two sides of the same coin. You might think they're completely opposite. In fact, one of the things that people with mental illnesses, specifically in this case, I'm speaking of people with borderline personality disorder, very serious mental illness, and the result of that illness is that they are extremely toxic and abusive in very unpredictable ways to the people who love them the most. And when borderlines act out, when they split, when they rage, afterwards they will then become suicidally guilty. So they'll go from raging and accusing people, calling them names, just being horrifically abusive to them, and then they will shift completely to the other side where they will want to commit suicide because they feel so guilty. And what they don't understand, because what they will say in an attempt to justify their behavior, they will say, "No, I'm not this horrible narcissistic person. When I lash out, I feel horrible and I want to kill myself." And somehow they think that makes them kind and loving, and it doesn't. It's the anger's turned inward. So the anger doesn't leave. You're either exploding on other people or you're internally raging at yourself, which is the same thing. You rage at yourself when you don't believe you're allowed to rage at other people. And so nothing gets accomplished. And this is, by the way, that's just an extreme form of codependence. So I'm going to talk about codependence and what codependence means. Why am I bringing that up? It has come to my attention over the years that I've had this channel that at least the people who are most vocal, I have no idea about the people who don't comment, who don't work with me, who don't, express themselves in some way. Maybe the silent majority are very healthy, happy people, which is why we don't hear from them. But my experience is that the majority of the people who interact with me, either on comments or on live streams, or even people who work with me, we're dealing with some level of codependence, untreated, and in some cases chronically codependent. Now, before you start feeling attacked and diagnosed, understand that we live in a codependent society. Codependence is a dynamic response, relationship response to narcissistic abuse. So anybody who believes, as I do, that we live in a world that is controlled by what I call the dark forces, which are a small force of, probably a few hundred people who have so much power and so much wealth, and they are so empty inside psychologically that they need to have complete control over the entire world and everybody in it. And so this is a form of narcissistic abuse. So in order to survive being in a narcissistically abusive relationship, a person has to adopt a codependent dynamic in order to survive. So my experience is that many people I interact with on this channel are chronically untreated codependents. The frustrating part about that is that I can point things out to you and know that they probably won't get dealt with because the level of unconscious resistance is so intense because of the codependent dynamic that the person is living and has been living their whole life. This is why I say, if you want to know why I say it's a waste of time to come onto my channel and listen if you're not going to take action, because the only thing that reverses the damage, and by the way, codependence is lethal. It just takes a lot longer. Somebody who has alcoholism, drug addiction, something like that, they could die tomorrow from their self-abuse. But somebody who's just codependent, it could take them decades before they kill themselves. And, there are ways to commit suicide in strange ways. One of them is death by cop. People who do that. They know that if they pull a gun out in front of a cop, that they'll get shot to death. So codependents delete themselves in other ways. Death by illness is the main one. What you mainly see with chronically codependent people is that they suffer in many ways. One of them is physical illness. Lethal. One day they go to the doctor and they're given a diagnosis, a lethal diagnosis. Well, that diagnosis of that physical imbalance has been in the making for perhaps decades. It's been going on little by little. And this is why I say, it's a lot easier to deal with somebody who knows that their life is on the line. You talk to somebody who's, dying of drug addiction, alcoholism, they know if they take another drink, their liver will shut down and they'll die. So they have nothing left to lose. You go to them, take them to an AA meeting, give them the 12 steps. They do it, no matter how painful it is, no matter how difficult it is, even though it completely, totally goes against all of their internal instincts for self-survival. They do it because they have nothing left to lose. They know if they don't, they're going to die. The codependent doesn't know that. And by the time they do know it, it's too late. And so it's frustrating for me because, as I say, if you're on this channel and you're just listening to me talk, you're probably not accomplishing very much. because psychological, epiphanies are meaningless. But the codependent lives on these. In fact, the codependent might even be addicted to these. Why do you think so many people go to Zohar the Magnificent? You know who I'm talking about. It's the woman who claims to channel multiple extraterrestrials and teaching you supposedly how to manifest the law of attraction. Why do you think so many people go to her? Well, because what she teaches is if you can just change your feelings, you can sit back and the world will give you all of the things that you want. You go and watch videos where somebody will say something, you go, oh my God. Even if you go to a therapist, and the therapist will tell you that's because your mother said this, and you're unconsciously, in love with your mother. Oh my God. And those epiphanies feel emotionally satisfying, yet they accomplish nothing. And this is where we live. This is why I don't have a very popular channel, because I'm completely focused on giving you the actions that will shift you. Whereas you go to Zohar the Magnificent's channel, she says, sit back, pay me 10 grand, go on a cruise, and let me tell you why everything is okay. In fact, somebody who was working with me, now, I'm not able to help everybody. There are some people that just, for whatever reason, I can't reach them, or they won't do the work. And one person was telling me for weeks that they didn't feel like they needed to do the work. They just wanted to listen to me talk. And, this went on for a while. And at first it sounded like they were complimenting me for how great my speaking skills were, until I came to realize that what the person was saying was, I don't want to take action on the advice you're giving me. And then this person said, I've now started watching this other channel and I'm following their advice. And their advice is just to tell me that it's all going to be okay. And I should just have faith that it's all going to be okay. And I said, you mean don't do anything? Don't take any of the really important actions we've talked about you need to do? Right. I'm not going to do any of those things. I'm going to go and listen to her channel, because I believe, if I believe that everything's going to be okay, then everything's going to be okay. And that is a misunderstanding of the whole idea of having faith, because you can't have, this is again one of the things the New Testament got right. Faith without works is dead. Belief without actions is meaningless. Completely meaningless. This is why people, those of you who like to smoke weed, this is why you do it. Because what THC does when you ingest THC, it keeps you stuck in your head, and you think everything is an intellectual exercise. You just want to feel mellow, man, but you don't want to take any action. And if you watch people who are weed addicts, one of the things you find out is that it's a ubiquitous joke. It's a stereotype. Weed addicts are lazy. They don't accomplish anything. They don't do anything. And that is the same as this person saying to me, I want to watch this other person's channel because they're saying that all we should do is just believe that everything's going to be okay, and then it will be, magically. But what happens in that situation is you don't take personal responsibility for the actions that you're taking, the beliefs that you hold, and more importantly, revealing your unconscious. So it was Jung that said, we must make the unconscious conscious. Otherwise, you will believe it is fate. Otherwise, you will believe it's God's will. So we're going to be talking about that. What is it about this solar flash that is forcing people to live like spiritual warriors, or they're choosing to just become passive observers? So I have, let's go quickly through the 10 rules of the solar flash ascension event. Number 1, everything is energy. Number 2, physical matter is energy vibrating at a certain frequency. Number 3, this earth is a simulation at a specific energy frequency. 4, your mind is a frequency antenna. 5, your body is an energetic frequency projector. 6, your soul is a neutral observer. 7, your chosen beliefs dictate your choices. Number 8, your choices change your frequency. Choices also is actions. You can say your actions change your frequency. Number 9, your frequency determines the dimension you live in. And finally, number 10, you are completely responsible for your frequency. I want to read a quote from one of Carlos Castaneda's books. So Carlos Castaneda, if you're not familiar with him, he's dead. He was a brilliant channeler of spiritual wisdom. About 90% of everything he wrote absolutely was brilliantly, perfectly channeled. 10% of it is total, utter, destructive nonsense. But 90% of it is absolutely brilliant. And the sad part is that Carlos Castaneda himself was a fraud. He did not take action on his own teachings. Had he lived his own teachings, he would have cured himself of his narcissistic personality disorder. He was a horrifically destructive cult leader, and he is responsible for the deaths of his direct followers, who after his death went off into the desert and killed themselves. He says, I don't know which book this is from, but he says, the basic difference between an ordinary man and a warrior is that a warrior takes everything as a challenge, while an ordinary man takes everything as a blessing or a curse, which means they believe that they are a passive victim of circumstance. So I want you to take a look at your life, and I want you to, and the good news is I'm not there sitting with you. So you don't have to reveal anything to me. This is the great thing about these video teachings. If I'm sitting there in front of you, I'm going to ask you questions, and I'm going to want to hear your response, and you're going to have to reveal yourself to me, and a lot of people are going to be uncomfortable with that. So if you want to stay a secret, no problem. But I'm giving you an opportunity to be honest with yourself. So I want you to take a look at your life, and I want you to ask you, are you happy? It's a yes or no question. You don't even need to put it in the chat. I'm not asking for that. Are you happy? Be honest. 2, are you healthy? Are you physically healthy? Are you suffering from an illness, a severe illness? Do you have issues, allergies, things like that? Or are you completely healthy? Number 3, are you prosperous? Meaning, are you able to get a hold of the resources to give yourself all of the physical needs that you want, including, forgive me, it's raining outside, that's why you're hearing me. Are you able to provide yourself with all of the resources to enjoy your life? I have no idea if you can hear me or not. The rain is really starting to come down out there. So ask yourself those 3 questions and be honest. And all right, while it's raining, I'm going to go ahead and put up the list here that I put together. So this is how warriors create and maintain their world. All right, you are responsible for your health. You are responsible for your happiness. You are responsible for your environment. Not responsible for other people's happiness. Okay, so, yeah. Okay, all the stuff that I had out on the porch that I was drying is now completely soaked as this rainstorm has come through. Okay, so let's go through these one by one. You are responsible for your existence. It is impossible to feel sorry for yourself if you fully accept and integrate the belief that you are responsible for your existence. So when people are told this, especially codependent people, when they're told that you are responsible for everything in your life, their first knee-jerk response is to feel judged, because they've got things in their life that aren't good, and they know it. What they want is to be able to say to you, you don't understand, I'm not responsible for this, they did it to me, or the world did it to me, or circumstances did it to me, or I was born this way, or God did it to me, or the devil, or life. So when I say to you that you are responsible for your existence, I mean you're responsible for being born. It was your idea. It was absolutely your idea. This is a law. This is an immutable law. There are no false beings of light that trick you into it. Even a lot of the Buddhist teachings that I hear that sort of seem to indicate that if you're not in an awakened mindset, then you unconsciously slip into something that pulls you into existence. And again, you can say, well, I didn't choose it, that was my karma. And so people focus on getting rid of karma because they think then, they won't be forced into being incarnated. But there is no such thing. Every single being, it includes animals, insects, trees, everything has chosen to incarnate in whatever reality they live in. So your first response might be to feel defensive. You might feel as though I am attacking you, because you hear in that when I say you are responsible for your existence, what you hear me saying is, well, you did it to yourself, you stupid idiot. Right? And that's not what I'm saying. I'm actually giving you power. One thing that codependents want more than anything is power. So those of you who are power hungry, yeah, fill in the blank. So I'm giving you real power when I say you are responsible for your just existing. The good news is, if you have that kind of power where you can create and manifest yourself, it means you have the power to fix anything in your world. Now, you can't hold on to that truth, that you have the power to restore and fix everything in your world. You can't hold on to that and feel like a victim at the same time. So as Carlos Castaneda said, you either take life as a challenge, which is, yeah, it's a challenge that you rise up to meet. So what does a challenge require? It requires action. There's no such thing as a challenge that requires zero effort on your part. Even if the challenge is to sit in meditation for a half an hour. You're technically not doing anything, but there's a heck of a lot of energy and effort and choice going into staying trying to stay in a meditative state for an hour. So you can't be a passive victim. A blessing. Let me talk about this for a moment. He says, The difference between an ordinary man and a warrior is that the ordinary man takes everything, the warrior takes everything as a challenge, and the ordinary man takes everything as a blessing or a curse. So let me give you an example of that. Now, bear in mind, life being a blessing or life being a curse is the worst position to be in. Even if you say you're blessed, I'm so blessed, I have such a blessed life. Well, unless you really understand what that means, you are in just as dangerous a position, at just as much a powerless position as somebody who says that their life is a curse. And I'll give you some examples of that. So, I mean, in the work that I've been doing my whole life, I'm no stranger to working with people who are in incredibly destructive relationships, whether they be family relationships or romantic relationships. I myself have no shortage of them either. I've had all kinds of destructive relationships I was born into and relationships that I, attracted and participated in. But let's say somebody gets involved with an abuser. Let's make it an extreme example. Let's say a woman gets involved with a man who's physically abusive. She stays in that relationship for a long time, suffers a lot of physical, psychological, and who knows whatever else kind of abuse. She can't leave. She's so codependent, she can't bring herself to leave. She can't tolerate when he rages at her every time she hints about ending the relationship. Well, she could say things like, this is a soul contract. By the way, anybody listening to me, if you believe in soul contracts, I am giving you permission to completely throw that nonsense away. There is no such thing as a soul contract. If by a soul contract you mean getting involved in a twin flame, which is a euphemism for codependent abusive relationship. Or I had a soul contract to be with this abusive person. In other words, it wasn't my choice. It was a soul contract that was made before we got here, and it was, destiny. I had to live through it. And so you spiritualize your choice to be abused. I've told you guys the story when I was 16 years old and we watched a woman get thrown out of a car. And after, 20 minutes of everybody telling her she's safe, we'll take you to the police, we'll make sure that, you're taken care of, she got back in the car with the guy and drove off. It was one of the most crazy things I'd ever seen, and it was very empowering. So people spiritualize the choices that they make. They'll say things like, well, it's good that I had that relationship because if it weren't for that relationship, I wouldn't have learned X, Y, and Z. Or after the fact, I've seen this, after the fact people will go, yeah, it's true, I spent 10 years with that incredibly abusive, mentally ill person, but you know what? I needed to go through it. And I think it was, God wanted me to experience it because I learned this, that, and the other thing. Now, don't get me wrong. There's all kinds of things you can learn from these destructive, challenging experiences. But you can learn them either in 30 years or you can learn them in one day. It's completely up to you. If you decide to learn the lesson today, you can end the abuse. If you want to stick with it and force yourself to look at the thing and, God was showing me and the universe was showing me and I was reliving with that, well, you can stay in it for as long as you want and you can spiritualize it and justify your lack of taking control of your reality. So it's either a blessing or a curse. There are people, I've found it very interesting to see that there are people who win the lottery. And you'd think that they've lived in a trailer their whole lives, and now they've won $25 million, and now everything's going to change, and they're going to pay off their debts, and they're going to take what they need, and they're going to enjoy their life, and they're set for life. And yet you find out just a few years later, they are not only completely broke, but they're in worse debt than they were before they won the lottery. Because they had a blessing. It was out of their control. The universe gave them millions of dollars. Oh, God blessed me with all this money. Take no responsibility. You are responsible for everything in your reality. If you accept that, no matter how challenging it is, I'm saying that knowing that you might be looking at your life and you might be seeing just absolute horrific hell. But if you can accept without guilt, without anger, without feeling sorry for yourself, if you can accept that you simply chose to create it, then you won't be a victim, and you'll know that you have the ability to change it. This is why I say I'm your best friend when you come to my channel, because I provide you the tools, the actions that you can take that will allow you to take your responsibility back. So you are responsible for your existence. Number two, you are responsible for your choices and actions. That's kind of what I said. You're in a horrific relationship. You chose to be there. We can definitely investigate how you were trained by your parents and your society and your surroundings, that you were trained. We might even, indulge in past life issues that trained you to make those choices, but it doesn't change the fact that you chose to be there. The only valuable understanding is if you realize that you don't have the ability to choose to leave. If you're addicted to it and you can't leave, then we've got something to work on. But that doesn't take away the fact that you chose to be there, that you went out of your way to create it. If it's not your parents and you weren't literally taken hostage by somebody at gunpoint, which then we would get into a whole, your soul chose that for some reason. But if you found somebody, fell in love, and entered into a relationship, you not only chose them, you put a ton of effort into finding and attracting them. That woman who got back in the car with the man who was abusing her and threw her out of a moving car, she put a lot of effort to find him, to be with him, and to stay with him. Problem is, she didn't know that she had the ability to leave. Number three, you're responsible for your circumstances. Again, you can't say it happened to me. God did it to me. The devil did it to me. You are so powerful that you created this entire universe that we live in. So if you want to blame it on circumstances, you have to blame yourself, because you're the one that created the entire universe. You created the circumstances. This is a fundamental truth about shamanism. If you say that you are a shaman, you want to practice shamanism, fundamental truth is that your entire reality is your own creation, including all of the people in it. You want to complain about Joe Biden? Well, you put him there. Not only did you might have even voted for him, but not only that, but you created him in your unconscious mind. I'm pointing to my navel center, your lower self. You actually created him. You created me. If you're watching this channel, it's because you created a confrontational teacher to tell you the truth. There was a part of you that wanted to be led out of your narcissistic, delusionary nonsense, and you created me. Here I am. You're responsible for your entire circumstances. You're responsible for your health. Everybody has the ability to create perfect health. It would be very easy to say, well, but then there's the circumstances this, people are born with this, people are born with that. And at another time in my life, I would have accepted that. Except I've seen people do things like cure themselves of blindness, for birth. They're just absolutely unbelievable things. Not with me personally, but with people who teach meditation, which, by the way, meditation is an action. You have to choose to do it, and then you have to follow through and consistently take that action. I forget the guy's name, but that's a real thing. I've seen people cure themselves of, like, they're about to die in a week cancer, and they cure themselves of it. I've cured myself of all kinds of physical ailments. I'm in much better physical condition and health at the age of 60 than I was at the age of 35. At the age of 45, I was a wreck. I could barely function. And I have no physical pain. I just went surfing again this morning. I went surfing yesterday. I'm doing things that guys my age aren't supposed to be doing. That's starting to change. More and more people are taking responsibility. There's a lot more people my age that are taking responsibility for their health. So you are completely responsible for your health, and the only reason that you are not completely healthy is because you are choosing things in your life that's creating conflicts that you're internalizing. Those internalized conflicts manifest as all kinds of different dis-ease, imbalance in your body. You are responsible for your happiness. You're not happy? I feel for you. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not, that's going to change. It's starting to change more and more. But there are times that I have sadness, I have pain, I have anger, I have all kinds of those feelings. And sometimes those are very intense. But I know that I am responsible, and I am getting more and more capable of changing those. And if I can't, like I get a resentment, for example, which I still get, which is I'm still thinking about somebody days later and what I should have said to them and what they're really doing and how I really need to tell them, show them how they're screwing up or how they're being hurtful to me or how they need to get it together or whatever it is. Whenever I get into that, that's called a resentment, and I do the fourth step that I teach you how to do on this channel. So I take full responsibility of it, and I'm able to then evolve beyond that. And the less conflict I have inside of myself, the less blockages I have between me and following my soul desire, which I teach you in my book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. The less conflict I have between me and my soul desire, the happier I am. Right now I'm quite comfortable in my life. So you're responsible for your happiness, and nothing has the power to take you out of your happiness except for you. It's okay if you are unhappy, but you've got to learn the practices and the actions to get you and keep you in a state of happiness. You are responsible for your environment. You're responsible for where you live, whatever house you live in. You're responsible for the people in your reality, meaning you manifested them. You chose to live with them. Unless you're 4 years old, or unless you're 10 or 11 or maybe even 15 or 16 years old, maybe then you don't have quite as much power. But I'm here to tell you that the moment that you get to be an adult, you have the responsibility to take off and go live on your own. You never have to deal with them ever again, whoever they are. You are responsible for your environment. You have created everything in your world. Everything. We talked about that, including the people. You created everybody. So you can't complain if you acknowledge that. Now, if you accept all of this, that you created everything in your life, it is impossible to be a victim, because Once you accept that you created everything, you simultaneously accept the understanding that you can change it. So this is the difference between a warrior and, as Carlos Castaneda calls it, the average man. When you tell the average man they created everything in their world, they don't hear it right. They feel guilty. They want to complain. They want to justify. They want to explain why they're not responsible. But what they're not getting is that they are able to change everything. If you created this horror that you live in, it means that you can create bliss. And when you accept that, you go, oh, like if you're fighting off a life and death illness. If you created that illness, then instead of feeling guilty and feeling shameful and feeling bad and feeling victim blamed, which, if I tell somebody who's dying of something and I say, well, you created that, then they're going to say, you're victim blaming me. I'm not. I'm telling you, you now have the ability to choose to heal yourself. The challenging part is you're going to have to look at the conflicts that created that. You're going to have to look at the conflicts. Conflicts, the blocks are challenging. They're painful. They're not easy, but they are absolutely, completely reversible if you're willing to look at them and take the actions necessary. If you created disharmony, you can restore it. So now let's talk about what you're not responsible for. You are not responsible for other people's choices. I said you created everybody in your world. That is true. But you're not responsible for the choices that they make. You're not responsible for the way that they live. You're not responsible for the way that they think. You're only responsible for the actions you take against them. You're not even really responsible for the feelings that you have. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be aware of them. That's a whole different thing. Being aware of the feelings and the impulses that you have is not the same as taking action on those feelings and impulses. So you have to take constructive actions, even if they go directly contrary to the feelings that you have. You want to delete somebody out of existence? Well, you can't do that. That's a universal rule. You don't have the right to take away anybody's existence. So you have to act lovingly and allow them to exist, even though everything inside of you wants to delete them. You are not responsible for other people's happiness. So you're not responsible for the way that they have chosen to treat you. You're responsible for how you choose to stay or not stay around that. You're not responsible for anybody's happiness. If you leaving, for example, a relationship to go be more fulfilled and more happy, if that's going to cause somebody pain, you can acknowledge that, but it's not your responsibility to stay with somebody just to make them happy. For example, it's not your responsibility to fix anybody. It's not my responsibility to fix you, even though I want to. I have, this is the difficult part, I have the answers to your life problems. I know what to do to have the life that I have and for you to have that. I know how to help you find your own true, authentic truth. You've got to do it. But this is the challenging part of this for me, for this, doing this channel, is that I can talk to you until I'm blue in the face about, doing the 90-day, doing the 12 steps to 5D, doing the immortals, getting a sponsor, getting a teacher. I can tell you to do that all day, but nobody's going to do it but you, and I can't make you do it. The people that I've said that there's been a handful of people that I stopped working with, and I stopped working with. There's a lot of people that have stopped working with me for varying reasons. Some I agreed with them. Yes, good for you. Go enjoy your life. Others I've said, well, I think you should keep working with me, but it's up to you. See you later. But the people that I've chosen to stop working with, there's only been one reason. And it's because they won't follow my suggestions. And if you don't follow my suggestions, then nothing's going to change. And I'm not interested in that. I'm only interested in helping you accomplish what you want. I'm only interested in helping you change. And so my job is to look at you and to see what's going on with you and do my best to determine, here are the actions you can take which will shift your frequency, which will shift your reality. If you're not willing to do that, there's nothing I can do for you, because I can't just simply snap my fingers and fix you. I can't snap my fingers and make you want to do things. You know, it was sometime a few days ago, somebody was on the channel, a new person, saying, I want to do the 90-day challenge. I have a hard time committing. And I said, you want me to co-sign that for you? All you've said is that I haven't done my job. That my job is to inspire you to take the actions. If I have inspired you enough to want to take the actions, but then you're not willing, you're consciously not willing to then take the next step, I've failed. Now, I'll live. I'm not going to, because ultimately it's your choice. But I'm constantly trying to think of new ways to motivate you to go beyond where you are. And the frustrating part for me is, I've got 25,000 subscribers. I've got probably, between 800 and 1,200 people that watch, a video at any given time. Of those 8 to 1,200 people, there's a few hundred maybe that are taking some actions. Of those few hundred, there's probably, a smaller number that are actively really taking this seriously. And of those, there's only a handful of people that work with me directly. So my ability to influence you is very limited, and it's frustrating for me. That's why I say people who just come to the channel and just watch, and that's all you do. You're missing out. This solar flash event is demanding that we participate. Now, I'm not saying if you don't work with me, you won't shift. I'm not saying that at all. But I can guarantee you, anybody who does actively work with me, I can pretty much guarantee you you're going to shift, because I'm going to give you things to do based on those blocks. The most challenging things within you that you want to overcome, I am going to face those with you. And I'm going to give you directions to actively address them. Now, it doesn't mean that my suggestions are like God's word for you. It means that you are actively taking direct action to shift your frequency up. And you're facing the most difficult things within you, and you're taking actions on them. And that will guarantee you to shift into 5D. That's a guarantee. Are there people that are going to just magically shift up? I'm okay with that. I wouldn't have a problem. That was what I wanted to believe a while ago, that the flash is going to come and everybody's going to shift up. I've come to realize that's not necessarily true, that there's a lot of people that won't. I don't know what the percentage of the human race is that won't shift up. I don't know. It's not my business. I don't care. I'm only capable of making sure that I do what I can to shift myself up. But I'll do everything I can for anybody that tries. I'll help you in any way that I can. You got to show up. That's why I don't take clients for free. You got to show up and you got to participate. You've got to, put your energy into it. You got to invest it into it. Otherwise, you won't get anything out of it. So, that's the warrior's list. You're responsible for your existence. You're responsible for your choices and your actions. You're responsible for your circumstances. You're responsible for your health. You're responsible for your happiness. You're responsible for your environment. You have created everything in your world. If you created disharmony, that means that you can restore it. You are not responsible for other people's choices. You are not responsible for other people's happiness. All right? Excuse me. So I'm happy to take a look and see if there are any questions. I prefer to answer questions from people who are listening to what I say and asking questions based on that. And of course, if you are a subscriber to the Patreon page, which is at thunderwizard.com, and you're doing those practices, you're more likely to ask the questions I'm going to want to answer. By the way, before we go any further, here are the ways that you take action. First thing you can do, if you're 10 years old, you live at your parents' house, you don't have any money, okay, fine. I've given you some free things that you can do. In fact, 90% of the things I make available to you are completely free. So there are playlists on the channel page. So go to the Thunder Wizard YouTube channel page. Go to the Awakening the Immortals, which you'll find in the Qigong playlist. Do that. I've now had multiple people get back to me and say that when they do the Awakening the Immortals, that they have experiences with higher dimensional beings that show up. If you have a walkie-talkie or a handheld ham radio, you can turn it on. This is an experiment. I didn't come up with this idea, somebody else did. Take your ham radio, turn it on, just leave it there, do the Awakening the Immortals, and see if the radio doesn't go off. The radio starts going ksh, ksh, ksh. That means that there's an extraterrestrial that felt you doing the practice. This is the thing about the Maoshan practices, the 923.thunderwizard.com, the Warrior 90-Day Challenge. The Maoshan practices are the bat signal. When you do them, higher dimensional beings hear and feel, and they come to that person. You don't even have to go through the whole, protocol, the interdimensional CE5 protocol. If you do your Awakening the Immortals, ETs are going to show up. If you want them to let you know that they're there, they will. So try that. Get your walkie-talkie or your ham radio, turn it on, do the Awakening the Immortals, and see if ETs don't show up. The second thing I want you to do, if you're 10 years old and you just can't find any money to get anything you want, all right, then I want you to go to to the playlist, the 12 Steps to 5D. Watch those videos, do what's in those videos. And what was the third one? And the third one is go to the playlist and do the free guided interdimensional meditation practices. Those are free. Those won't cost you anything, and those will shift you. Those will empower you to take further action in your life. Now, if you're dead serious, you're not 10 years old, and you're actually able to provide for yourself, then go here to thunderwizard.com, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Simply follow the instructions on the videos. All you have to do is just press play and do what I do. It's very simple. Just follow the instructions. If you're really ambitious or you want to shift up, if you've done all that and you want to shift up to the next level, which is, in my experience, I have to assume it's the most powerful energy practice ever downloaded to humans. You can go to 923.thunderwizard.com, and I have the Maoshan 5-element moving forms, which I was charging $3,000 for. You can get that, as well as every single other video teaching I have, again, worth $5,000 or something like that. I throw it at you for a few $100. You can get my books, michaelwilliamdenny.com. Read my books so you know what it is that I teach. Read Interdimensional Revolution. Read Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, to know what ETs are trying to teach us, what we can do to shift up. Read the Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life and treat that as a daily Bible. It's a small little booklet, but if you master what that book teaches, you're guaranteed to shift. All right, now I've gotten that out of the way. And by the way, everybody who does that, you give yourself something that financially, requires a financial investment. That helps me keep the lights on. It helps me continue to do these videos every day. So I'm appreciative of that 1/2 of the 1% of all the people who are on this YouTube channel who actually help me, keep doing what I'm doing. So I appreciate that, and I encourage you, if you want to continue to give back to me, that's the best way to do it. All right, let's take a look here and see what's going on. So Cats and Me, Before I even started talking, you wrote a question. And how many times have I told you, listen to what I'm saying first, because I'm probably going to answer it. I'm going to read your question, but I'm not going to answer it because you already know the answer. Your question is, I hate myself. As a result, I've been working out as if my life depends on it. Do I have a problem? It's not even a question. And how many times have I said that feelings are not facts? And that what's most important is to take contrary actions in spite of your feelings. It sounds like you have a question for your therapist. So I know you have one, so you should talk to him. But I think you already know the answer to your question there. Let's see, what else? Okay, let's see. All right, there's somebody's talking themselves out of meditating. I'm not even going to get into that, but you know who you are. That was a backhanded passive-aggressive way of saying I feel guilty that I don't meditate enough. And whose problem is that? You telling me you don't have 10 minutes a day? You know, listen, my fiance, the love of my life, she passed away. Sadly, very sadly, devastated me. But she couldn't find 10 minutes to meditate. And she was dying because she was too busy. So anybody who starts talking about how I don't have time to meditate, I mean, you spend, 5-10 minutes on the toilet every day. You have time to relieve yourself, but you don't have time to sit and meditate? I don't buy it. I'm not going to co-sign that. You want to tell yourself that, you go right ahead. Am I saying you have to meditate? Yeah, I kind of am. And I'll tell you why meditation is so important. Why is meditation so important? You will not be able to accurately determine what actions you need to take in life from your third dimensional mind. And so right now you're interacting with your third dimensional mind, your intellect. What meditation does, I'm going to tell you something nobody's ever said, but this is the truth about any real meditation. I recommend you do the meditations I teach because I'm not one of these people that sits around and intellectualizes with my eyes closed thinking it's meditation. A lot of people do that. They think that closing their eyes and trying to empty their mind is meditation. Most people can't do that. Emptying your mind is the result of meditation. It's not the act of meditation. What meditation does is it opens a portal between your meditative mind and higher dimensional powers. That's it. When you have access to higher dimensional powers, you are able to look at your third dimensional dynamics, your thinking, your mind, all of that, and you're able to bring to your conscious awareness things in your unconscious which needs to be dealt with. Meditation is necessary because if you don't tap into some power in a higher dimension greater than you, you will be using the very tools that got you into the problem to begin with. You will not be able to think yourself out of your current state. If your state is you want to spiritually evolve, spiritual evolution requires death in the third dimension. Ego death in the third dimension, that can only happen when you have an active connection to a higher dimensional frequency. And this is what meditation is all about. Meditation can be mantra meditation. It can be moving meditation. The 923.thunderwizard.com, the Mao Shan 5-element practices, is a moving meditation. And it is so powerful, it literally creates a yantra. It creates a higher dimensional space that literally pulls deities and powers into your physical space. That is a meditation. Doing all of the other stuff that I teach on here, runes, whatever. Those are all different forms of meditation, not just sitting on your ass trying to empty your mind. If you have the ability to do that, my hair is off to you. I need something more powerful than that. I can do that after the fact. After I've done my meditations, then I can sit and empty my mind. So meditation is absolutely necessary for this. Otherwise, you just won't have the ability to go beyond your third dimensional reality, and more than likely, nothing will change. Let's see what else. Okay, Cats and Me honest feeling. Let's see here. I feel sad and guilty for not following your instructions on listening first. I apologize and I'll do my best to do better. That's all you can do. I acknowledge your feeling, and yeah. And of course I do that for your benefit. When you come here to my class, it's good to sit in class, pay attention, listen to what I'm saying, because very likely I'm gonna touch on whatever your question is. Yeah. And by the way, lots of times I will talk about things that you're wondering about. So if you want me, if you, let's say Cats and Me, you have a question you want me to answer about something, meditate on it. And you'll find, strangely, I'll show up and start talking about it. It happens all the time. This is the world that we live in. All right, that's it. We're all done. So welcome to the channel. If you're new, subscribe, like, do all of that. And you got the message, my friends. The spiritual warrior who shifts to 5D must be willing to take actions. You must be willing to do the challenging things, to embody different assumptions, take the risk of believing in the universe, and then taking the appropriate actions. If you do not shift, the spiritual energy is going to intensify, and you will have to do something. And if you end up don't take the responsibility to shift, the universe will choose for you, meaning that you will shift down. The truth is, you'll make a choice, but you will start acting. Your frequency will pull you down a level below, and there's no need for that. Evolution demands that we take fearless action. So I provide you with the tools to give yourself the power to take those actions. And again, I encourage people to work with me. I don't care if I'm not the only game in town, but you have to have somebody. You have to have a sponsor if you're working the 12-step programs. You need to have a mentor, a guide, a guru, a teacher. It's good to have a group of people to work with, to bounce, to be authentic and transparent with. And you're watching my channel and you want my help, go to the thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the apprenticeship level, and then you can work with me one-on-one. Or you can go to career.thunderwizard.com and you can get a one-off session, and we can determine, I can give you my suggestions on where to go and what to do to help you find the tools to shift. But you can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. And if you want what I have, you got to do what I do. So those are my suggestions. There's a, let's see, a question, Jacob Hoy question. Does the Mao Shan practice of 923 include spirit fighting? Yes. Can we get that and then learn the spirit fighting at a later time? Well, it is spirit fighting. There's 3 other sets that are more complicated, and I'm open to that. There are people that I've taught, and I'll teach again if I have live students, but I'm only going to teach that in person. But Jacob, you're really getting ahead of yourself. If you're not doing the 923 and you're already trying to get to the best thing, this is, by the way, this is kind of an immature thing that people do. People, lots of times when they've come to me in the past about the practices, they'll go, tell me which is the best practice, which is the most powerful practice. And it shows, childish insecurity and impatience, because you don't even know what the basics is. And the masters, the guys who are the masters of spirit fighting, when they get around my age or older, they just spend their entire life standing postures and meditating. They go back to the most simple, basic things, and they get everything they need from that. So these kinds of questions, if I was a traditional Chinese guy and you came to me and asked me that question, I would say, there's the door, thank you, this is not the place for you, because you're saying I'm not able to take one step at a time and master what's given to me. I need something better than this. And if you're already trying to do the best thing and you haven't even started with the thing that's in front of you, how are you going to be able to master what's in front of you? And the 5 elements are you're mastering the 5 elements in ways that no other practice can. And you're asking me about, can we do the other stuff? That's usually not how it works. How it works is the teacher provides something for you. When you get to a certain level where you've mastered it, the teacher will say, come here, you're ready for step number 2. The last thing you want to do is go to the teacher and start saying you want to do the most powerful one. I'll end with this because it was funny. I was hearing this from some guy. It was a kung fu guy. It was a kung fu guy, and they were going to these kung fu competitions where people do forms and all that. And one guy showed up in the competition and he started doing a form. And one of the masters was sitting next to the teacher of the guy, the other master of the guy who's doing the form. And he says, those are just a bunch of openings. Like when you see guys do this, that's an opening movement, a salute. And he goes, those are just a bunch of salutes. And he goes, yeah. He came to me and he said, I want the most powerful, I want the most advanced thing. And he went, oh, you want the most advanced thing. So he took all of the different salutes, and he turned it into this one form, which was basically meaningless. And here's this guy in front of the whole world doing all of these meaningless, gestures for, salutes, thinking that he's doing something, and his ego is so attached to it, he's doing it in front of the whole world. And people that know are looking at it going, that's nothing. I'm not that kind of a teacher. There are teachers that will do that. They'll teach you wrong because, they need the student. I'm not going to do that. You come at me with something that's going to be damaging to your ability to learn, I'm going to tell you. So if you want it, it's right there. If you want something else, you can go look for it. And if I think it's in people's best interest to learn the Ridda, I'll be more than happy to teach it. And the other thing to know is if you're meant for that, it will find you. You won't be able to avoid it. If you're meant for it, it will find you. All right. Nothing else? Okay, I guess we're done. So if I've done or said anything to hurt anybody's feelings, my intention. My intention is always to be as helpful as I possibly can. I love you so much. I don't need for you to like me. I need for you to do what you need to do to heal. That's all I care about. I want your happiness and your health and your prosperity. And if you hate me while you're doing that, so much the better. I could care less. It's not about me, it's about you. With that, I'll see you guys next time. If the flash don't come and or I don't get beamed up to the Starship Enterprise, I will see you all very soon. Please take very good care of yourselves.